Welcome or welcome back, guys. Day 13. Let's make this a lucky day. Let's jump into the game. Our opponent is rated 1193 today. They're from Singapore and called So 8-Tut. 1 e4 as per usual, and we will play the Sicilian defense. They play the Bowdler attack, and I think last time when we checked the analysis, we came to the conclusion that this move here, kicking the bishop back, that's what we want to accomplish, but I think the evaluation said this move was actually better. I think it's because it pressures this, but I don't know what the continuation would be after they push their pawn. Which would probably be an overextension, but I'm not seeing any immediate way of punishing it. So we'll go here, and I'll try to remember to check how the follow-up, or what it looks like after this. As I mentioned last time, this is it's a move, but it's not the critical move, I think, because it allows us to play for d5 and push the bishop back, so white loses their first move advantage. This move seems quite peculiar though, and I'm looking at this maybe in response, hitting this pawn. They can't push because we take, and despite their queen threatening this, we have our pawn as well. This might force this perhaps. Or they could push their pawn. What happens if en passant? I'm not sure as to whether this is good for us or not. So we might go ahead and start getting our knight into the game and then play from there. This or this is what we're expecting. They play their knight out. And I think here we could look for this, and maybe we could maybe capture like this after en passant. But this move as well, I'm looking at fianchettoing our bishop. Simply because they can't push this pawn, and they might struggle to push this pawn as well. So it's going to be difficult to support their pawn in the center. This might not be the critical approach, so I'm curious to see after the game whether it's going to be blessed by the engine or not. They castle, allowing themselves to play this move afterwards, protecting the pawn. I think we'll go like this. And we could even pressure the pawn further by playing like this afterwards. Looking to just hit the pawn in several ways. I'm currently expecting this move. Yes, and they play it. What happens after this? They could potentially play like this. After which captures, 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 and we can take like this if we wanted to. So do we have this move right now? I'm curious as to whether this move and castling first is better, or whether pushing here is best. But I think we might want to move to safety, as our king is starting to get a bit weak, I think. We could play like this as well, which would result in this continuation. It forces our opponent to play quite defensively around their pawn, which I like. But we'll see after the game what the best approach would have been here. They push their pawn like this, which I think is a mistake, because I think they lose their pawn here. They can't recapture like this. So we're gonna have this and this maybe. But we don't have to go for the knight trade. We can go like this, I think, and pick up a pawn. So I think we'll just capture. And what does our opponent do here? If we do get this pawn, we might be able to play our knight up to the center as well. Although I'm not quite sure as to whether it would be better than this more defensive move. I think we might want to keep this diagonal open for our bishop. Anyways, we want to play one of those moves pretty soon, I think, because we want to get castled. They defend their pawn in a creative way, and now they have 3 defenders again. I wanted to look at this move, because if they take us, we take, but then they just get another piece and we would be losing. How about punishing this weakness? Or maybe going for their bishop. I think it's too slow, to be honest. We want to get our king to safety, as I mentioned. So we will continue with our plan and play as solidly as possible. I'm expecting this move now to recapture. Or actually, they still can't play that move, to be honest, because they would lose their defense here. This move. Why are they playing over there? This would come with a threat on our queen. So we could play this move here to prevent any shenanigans with their bishop and their potential knight infiltration. We could also play to knock their pieces back, as I don't really think we have very little time in regards to getting our king to safety. We still have a lot of pieces in between here, but we will have to be careful in the long term. We will play this first to deal with their threat and see what happens next. If they play here, we still go like this, I think. So this bishop, this pawn rather, is still uncapturable, I think. We have to be to remember, if we take this pawn, if we do so with the incorrect piece, they might have an awkward pin for us to deal with. So I'm looking at playing this move at some point perhaps, or finding an alternative way of hitting their bishop. But we will have to see how the game develops. If we do end up playing this move, kicking their bishop back, we could... Oh, they capture like this. What's our plan going to be in this position? It's a pin, but they can't capture. And we have a piece that can immediately move to defend, because we could move like this and get our knight to defend our other knight again, which I'm kind of liking. So we will go for it, I think. We just have to make sure that they didn't have this kind of a pawn move. So if they move back, we might have to be aware of this move. Or we might not actually have to think too much about it, because then they would block their bishop, I'm noticing. Now we are kind of hitting this bishop, but it's currently defended by the knight here, so we can't take it yet, but it might be a long-term problem for our opponent, having this knight tied down to this defense here at least. Now I think we're getting close to having to get our king to safety, because castling is long overdue in this position. So which moves could our opponent play here? The bishop here can't do much at all, with the light squared bishop. We've got pawns on all the light squares, defended by other pawns. They can't jump in with this knight. They could try to stack up on this square, which would hit this once again, but we could actually just play like this, which would break the pin and defend our knight with a pawn. And then if they take, we can take, and they can't really take with either piece, to be honest. I think b6 is going to be pretty nice at some point, because it will allow us to just build a strong center, whereas our opponent has lost both their central pawns. This is also a potential move here. So we've got a lot of incoming pawn moves potentially here, kicking all their pieces back and gaining space. But first, this is probably going to be important. They push their pawn here. Looking at this bishop, I'm thinking I want to hit it. But we would need to defend our knight, or our queen rather, like this. So we either play d6, I think, or we castle. Let's have a look at d6. Does our opponent have any threats? This knight can't jump. This bishop can't do anything, I think. Let's have a look at this move. This might get a bit awkward. I think we'll castle first. This doesn't really generate any immediate threats, I think. Just defends this knight long term. They play back there, probably looking for this move. And I think in this position we'll have to look at this move or this move. We could always play this move as well. Or this, but I think this is probably better. Simply because it immediately threatens their bishop and gives us more control over the central squares. So let's go like this. might have... Or I was thinking of knight moves with this knight, but our bishop here has to get into the game because we need to connect our rooks as well. So this maneuver is probably long overdue. Our opponent captures our knight. And what are we going to do in response? I think needlessly doubling our pawn structure is going to be bad. So we will capture with our bishop, and then our opponent... I'm not seeing any immediate threats, so I think we'll just go ahead and grab the bishop here. I think capturing might have been a mistake by our opponent, but they might have disliked this pressure we had against their bishop. They move their knight back. And I think in this position we will probably just move back to where we were. And then what are we going to play for here? I think this is probably still a good maneuver. And this knight might want to jump into the game. This might be a move. Or this might also become a move. It's not currently playable because they would capture us. They preemptively move their bishop back. And here I think we could just play for this still. It doesn't come with a tempo anymore, but it gives us a powerful diagonal over here. I wanted to make sure here we don't have this kind of a move, but everything's defended, so we can't really play that adventurously. So we'll go ahead and do this instead. Luckily we're going to have two potentially really powerful bishops along those diagonals here, and our opponent's bishop is just biting on granite as of now. Or so I hope, at least. We have to make sure there is no sack here at any point during the game. But we still have this even, which we won't have in a move probably. So if I was playing as our opponent right now, I would like to either move this knight and remaneuver it, or I would like to move the queen to some place to get both rooks onto those files here and stare down at our position. So okay, they go for the knight move, so we don't have to look at their queen moves yet. And we will go ahead and get our bishop in here, I think. So this knight, where do we think it belongs? We might want to have it set behind our pawns, but that depends on whether we want to push our pawns up into the position or not. This move threatens to capture here, I think. It might to some degree. Let's just say we play a random move here, like this. Our opponent could play this, we capture, they capture, comes with a check. And we don't have our queen on a light square, so they couldn't really do any discovered attacks against our knight. Can we capture this? They have their queen here, so probably not. How about just getting our rooks rolling? Where do they belong? We might play this move actually, because we might want to open up. No, we don't want this to happen because this would get isolated. So I think we'll play this first, getting onto this half-open file, and then decide whether we want our other rook on the E or D file. This might be a maneuver, but I think it gets countered by this kind of a move, and it leaves this pawn weak as well. They jump in like this. They're really starting to pile up the pressure on this square. I'm curious as to whether they are actually planning to sack here or not. We could obviously play this and kick the knight out, but do we have a follow-up? This might be a move. Let's take a look at this. Captures. Captures, and this would be a check, and we would lose this. Do we have to play this move? Alternatively, we could. I think we might have to play this move actually, and then just slowly advance in the center. It's gonna leave this bishop a bit weak for a while, but I don't want to use too much time here. The main drawback, of course, is this bishop is probably just a glorified pawn for a while, but our other bishop is uncontested on the dark squares. Did I miss something here? Our opponent has a fork. This is followed by this. And then we can move our queen, and we would probably get 2 pieces for 1, right? I don't think this is too bad, because after they go here, we could look for this kind of a move. Threatening their pawn. And then we go like this, I think. And I think this should be pretty okay for us. Let's have a look at this, followed by this. And if they take here, is this a blunder by us or not? Captures, captures. This is forced. We might have to capture with our king, actually. That's kind of awkward. But it's going to leave us up 1 piece, I think. So we will go ahead and play like this. It looks so ugly though. This king is really exposed, but losing our knight was not very good, I think. I didn't see any follow-up, at least, after getting their knight or their king into the corner. So we went for this. Am I overlooking anything? They could obviously check us, right? But we could just go back. Yeah, I'm kind of confused here. I'm hoping they are making a mistake. As I mentioned, I'm not seeing what their move here would be, at least. Our opponent checks us here. And I think we could just go like this, maybe. Or we could actually defend like this, I'm noticing. Which is probably the critical defense here. As it defends this pawn as well and allows us to probably just walk to safety. The queen trade should be really good for us here as we are up a piece. Our opponent might try to pressure our pawn here or do this. If they go for the rook move, I think we're pretty happy. They move their queen. And we'll go ahead and move our king to safety, I think. Before it's too late. They hit our queen. And I think we just move back like this, keeping our defense here and threatening to trade rooks. This also defends the bishop, or rather both bishops actually. This queen is just defending everything. They check us, and I think we just move over here, and we should be as safe as can be, I think, after getting h8 at least. Because we still have this diagonal to worry about, but I think it's currently not a super big threat. So let's move like this. So we're currently up a bishop for 2 pawns, which I'm pretty happy with. I think that's going to work to our advantage probably. Obviously we have the king's safety compromised, but after getting this move in, I think we're going to be pretty good. This is also an important move. So what moves could our opponent play here as well? I think it's difficult to make very good threats as our opponent here. But they could move their queen onto this diagonal to threaten this kind of a move. Which I'm not seeing the follow-up for it, but I think it's probably the most dangerous move I can find right now. This bishop is always going to threaten this. They move their rook. And I think in this position we could play this move actually. They can't take our pawn, and we threaten checkmate if they move like this. And we also threaten an infiltration on their back rank, which I'm liking. This move has to be played at some point as well. They move their queen, so let's have a look at this. They capture, we capture, they capture, we capture, and they can't go for this. But it might be a good trap. I'm not currently liking this bishop here, so we might want to reposition it at some point along a better diagonal. Either this diagonal here or this one maybe. Now they're threatening our pawn though. This might be a move. And then we could reposition like this, which I think I'm liking. Or alternatively, we could push. Probably not. It doesn't work out tactically, so we will go for this. Defending our pawn. I'm not currently liking how we are playing a defensive game right here, but this might change at some point, I'm hoping. This diagonal would be pretty sweet for our bishop, keeping the threat of a back rank mate. Which threats could our opponent make here? They move towards our pawn, and I think we could just start repositioning our bishop. So we'll start like... Should we? I'm liking this move better actually. Threatening a queen trade and defending everything. And depending on where our opponent moves, we could look for this move. Let's say they move up like this. And this would be a big threat because it hits their queen, and if they capture, then we have checkmate here. So getting this kind of an infiltration is probably going to be pretty critical here. And the queen trade is always going to favor us as we are up one piece and our king is the most compromised. Our opponent could maybe move like this, but this would still be an awkward move to face, and they wouldn't be hitting our pawn here. Actually, as I'm looking at this... Oh, they play this move? And now I think we're probably pretty happy. We will capture like this. And we don't mind losing this pawn, I think. So we will move up like this. Let me just double check. This might be awkward, so we might have to play it somewhat differently. I think we will move up here first. So we still have safety for our king here, or rather a way of moving around. They might play this move now, however. But then we could have this move as well. And I don't think they could defend their pawn, because this doesn't work. So I think we should be winning in this position, but we have to be a bit quick as our time is running out. Our opponent might play this move. But honestly, we could just move our king up. Or that would depend on our opponent's moves, as they might play something like this as well. It seems like they're trying to come up with a plan here, which is probably a bit difficult to do in this position. But even just getting here, and hitting their king like this might be a good idea. They go for this, which is a mistake. They want this, 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 and getting our bishop, but if we capture like this, it's just a fork. Or is it? Let's have a look. They're still threatening the same thing. I think we'll start with this move. And we might play this move. We might have a really fun checkmate here. Or a threat at least. I think we'll go for this. They will go for this. We will block. They will... Oh, really? Wow. Well, that's just super good for us. Then we'll just take their rook. And then they should probably lose this game shortly. Let's just go ahead and promote. What's the quickest checkmate here? This probably works. And then I think we have a ladder checkmate. Or something similar at least. This is looking kind of awkward. But yeah, it works. Perfect. That's checkmate. And it brings us up to 1353 ELO today. Let's jump on ahead into the game review. Thanks a lot for the game, by the way, So8Tut from Singapore. Today we played with an accuracy of 86.2 and our opponent played with an accuracy of 73.5. We've got our evaluation turned on, so let's just go ahead and see how this played out. This was all theory. Apparently this is a book move. For some reason I thought this was recommended last time, but maybe not. This was a mistake and we played the best response, but afterwards this probably just won the pawn, I'm realizing just now. It's always easy to see in hindsight, but we should have played this move because it's kind of unintuitive moving our queen in the start of the game, but it would have been a good move here. We did it like this, and this was a mistake. This allows our opponent to solidify their pawn in the center. And we move like this, and we got this move in, essentially rendering this knight useless at the moment and threatening this move. This capture was not so good because we got this move in and we got to castle. Here we defended correctly, and we should have apparently captured like this, which is difficult to decide to do in a game. The evaluation is not super different though, but I'm curious, is this move only good because it kicks the knight? Maybe, or we might have had this move defending everything. Either way, we went like this, we went back, and we pushed like this, reposition our bishop, and here I'm curious what the best move would have been. E5. Okay, basically just mitigating all the threats our opponent had in this pawn, which makes sense, I guess, because afterwards here we got hit by this move, which wasn't the best move. And here we made a mistake. Taking our bishop would have been better, because what's our opponent's move here? Yeah, they got this. Okay. I see we made a mistake there. They didn't capitalize and we captured here, and in this position we got our material advantage. We blocked and got to safety here. We should have hit their queen here apparently. I'm seeing the evaluation doesn't think the moves are super different here in strength. We went for this trade, and at this point I think the game was essentially over. Here already we should have went for this check. But we did it like this, and we played it like this, we captured, and in this position, why couldn't our opponent play like this? Oh, they were in check. I didn't notice. And we just pushed. Apparently here we had a mate in 2, but that's often difficult to see if you don't give checks every move. But it would have been forcing, so it makes sense. We used a bit for more moves. It took us longer, and we got this checkmate instead. Well, that's the game for today, guys. Thanks a lot for watching to the end of the video, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye!